This is the 90-Degree Show brought to you by the Marching Podcast. And now here's your host, the Phantom Podcaster himself, Joe Beard.
Welcome to the 90-Degree Show. I'm your host, Joe Beard, and happy to be of service for you. This is week 8 of the 2016 season, and we appreciate all those listening through iTunes, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, our website, our blog, or wherever you are on the interwebs. At the end of the broadcast, if you decide you like the show, then we appreciate a donation to the network if you feel so in your heart, of course. Just simply go to themarchingpodcast.com and click on the donate button to help improve the show and help build our scholarship fund. This podcast is presented by Block Band Music and Publishing, The Edge One Productions, and Double Time Entertainment. We hope you enjoy the show. I want to take this time to say thanks for all the support that we've had for the show. We want to make a change because we are doing so much with the production of each podcast. We're going to change the release day for the 90-Degree Show. We did our best to release on Mondays and tried Tuesdays. Wednesdays, I teach a class, but I think that we can get the podcast out by the end of the week. So from now on, you can expect to see or hear the 90-Degree Show by Fridays of each week. More than likely be able to put them out on Thursdays, but more than likely on Fridays. And it doesn't change the content of the show. We'll still be talking about whatever happened that previous Saturday, and we'll still do our best to tell what we can tell at each event. So in this podcast, we talk about the Southern Regional Battle of the Bands between Miles College and Talladega College. There are lots of similarities between these schools. They share the same state of Alabama, which adds plenty of fire. But you also have two schools and two band programs that have propelled themselves into the national spotlight. A couple years back, these two schools had a battle of the bands, and it got kind of ignorant out there, and everyone was talking about how the two schools interacted with one another. This contest really added the fire, and now these two have somewhat of the hated Duke, North Carolina rivalry going on. We welcome back Bridget Bell and Rashad to talk about the matchup between the bands and what they thought of the battle itself. We also get into the discussion about arranging and how writing music can be different or different philosophies about writing music. You can email the show at marchingpodcast@gmail.com, tweet us at marchingpodcast, or follow our blog, blog4.themarchingpodcast.com. We are in week 8 now, and we have our round table back. We have the great Miss Bridget Bell. How are you doing in this podcast?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to hear you. Thanks again. You survived from the homecoming festivities at Morgan State.
Absolutely. I'm here to talk about it.
Right. I'm excited to hear about Morgan. Give some Morgan some love. And, of course, we have the magnanimous Rashad Waters. What's going on, Rashad?
What's happening, man? What's happening?
Well, good to hear from you guys. Glad that you guys were able to spare your time for the sake of the craft. So I ask you first, Rashad, what were you up to this week?
Man, this was a busy week, man. The highlights of my week really was going up to the Kennel Classic Band Competition hosted by Kings Forks High School. Bernard Bradley is the band director there. He's been on the show at least a time or two with us. Brother Fami Alpha went to Hampton University as well with me. Block Band helped to sponsor the competition, so that is our second one that we've helped to sponsor this year. We awarded the Grand Champion Trophy to the first place winner, which was Varina High School out of, I believe that is Henrico, Virginia. There was 14 bands, I believe, there. Those Virginia bands, man, they can play. They can really play. And the percussion sections are really good as well. Virginia Union attended as well. Bethune-Cookman was there in addition. Oh, nice. So that was fantastic. Today, as I came back home, I really went back to where it all started, which was listening to my parents sing. Their choir celebrated their 42nd anniversary today. And
Okay.
really, for me, that's where music all started. I remember being a young man. I'm not quite 42 yet, so they were around before me. But being a young man and singing in the church, actually, I was sitting in the back of the church by the time I was old enough to be able to do so. And since I was sitting in the back, I couldn't understand what they were saying. So I really started getting involved into the music. And really, that's really what truly inspired my love for music. And so here I am. And so it was great to see them sing. I've got a lot of videos on my personal page. Maybe you guys will check it out. I put some on Block Band Rashad as well. They are a really good choir. And my mom led one of the songs, and she's the president of the choir.
That's cool,
My
man.
dad, spokesman for the choir.
That's cool, man. I saw one of them that you posted, so I figured,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I figured that was family. Does this also have to do with you being in the men's choir there at your church? Because
Yes, sir.
you saw your folks singing in the choir. Is that correct?
Yeah, they really inspired me as far as singing. And then when I was old enough, I did go ahead and join their choir as well. For me, I found a little bit more of a home in the male chorus.
Okay.
And so that's where I've been ever since.
Miss Bell talked about Morgan, and we talked about basically not only how big they were, but how good they looked. Go ahead and tell us what you did this week.
First of all, this has been an exciting week. I think for alumni, going back home for homecoming is always exciting. And, it's usually a week of activities, all kind of great things happening. And this is no different at Morgan State. But prior to even going to homecoming, I was kind of torn between two things. On Friday night, we always have it was called Friday Night Lights, the night before homecoming. The alumni come out, you come out in your old gear and stand out there and watch the band, and everyone hugs and greet people you haven't seen in a long time, and it's become a bigger deal. So I was torn between that and the African Children's Choir put on a concert across the street from my home, and that is one group that I've wanted to see for quite some time. They're sponsored by an organization called Music for Life. And so it's like, do I go to Friday Night Lights or do I go see this once in a lifetime opportunity? They only come to the area maybe once every couple years. And I actually went ahead and was like, you know what? I'm going to go see African Children's Choir. And I'm so excited that I did. They are sponsored by a group, again, called Music for Life. They take kids living in poverty out of Africa. They educate them at a boarding school in Uganda, I believe, and the kids are between 8 and 10 years old. And when I say a fantastic organization, if people are looking to support an organization, wonderful. The kids did African drumming, they did singing.
Nice.
They're touring the United States, so if you check out African Children's Choir, you may even see them come to your area because they are on tour right now. So I said, I'm going to go see them and then go out to Friday Night Lights. Didn't quite happen that way, but it's okay because it was a worthy cause. So that kind of was my week. Like I said, I'm so glad I did get to see them. And then I spent the rest of my weekend at Morgan State University for homecoming. Homecoming this year played North Carolina Central, which is the #1 team in the MEACs. So we knew it was going to be an interesting game,
yeah.
but we was also looking forward, at least I was looking forward to seeing their band. And we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show. I was asked to judge the homecoming parade, so I got to see some wonderful high school bands. That's always wonderful to see. It was cold, but it was cold out there up on that podium, but it was so wonderful. The high schools, they come down, and it's really, really exciting to see some great bands from all over. We had a good showing this year. We had a group out of Winston-Salem that came up and one out of Plainfield. I think Plainfield High School, their director is a FAMU graduate. He came up. There's a group out of right below Washington, D.C. called Crossland High School. I think they have a Jackson State band director. That group came up. It was wonderful to see the many high schools, the great things people are seeing, because, they're the foundation of our HBCU bands.
Right.
So we got to support them and show them love. So that was really exciting to see some wonderful groups, some wonderful things happening. It's always heartwarming when you see young kids coming out there giving it up, doing their thing. So that was a great opportunity to kind of start the homecoming festivities. Baltimore Poly and Western High Schools out of Baltimore City won the parade. When I say really how that program has developed, I've seen that program kind of do an up and down kind of thing, and they're really on the up. They have a nice full staff. Their directors are Morgan graduates and Howard graduates. They have a full staff over there that's doing a great job. They stopped there performing well, marched well. The ranks look great. They sounded pretty good. So we were really excited to see that. Crossland High School, they're kind of on a growth spurt coming up too out of Washington, D.C., but we was really pleased with their sound. I think everybody kind of came through almost playing the same few songs. It wasn't a whole lot of variety, but that kind of happens with high school bands. You kind of seeing the same things, hearing the same things, but it was fine.
Right.
It was
Did
fine
you
because they
hear
still
My
did a
Boo
nice
three,
job.
4 times?
We did hear My Boo. We heard, was it Black and Blues, whatever. We heard that a couple times. And then whatever the college bands are playing, we are great examples for the high schools because they imitate what we do. Whoever they're around, wherever their directors are from, that's what you're going to see. We were so tickled with the Crossland drum major. He was a great drum major, but I knew immediately, I was like, oh, his band director must be from Jackson State because I call it the juking style. He had that juking going on. I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
But, he got the crowd hyped. The podium loved it. We were excited to see David E. Talbert is a Morgan graduate. Shout out to David E. Talbert. He has a movie coming out next week, I believe. And he was really excited on the podium. He and our president, where they were talking about the drum major from Crossland. They were talking about the high school band from Baltimore City. So that was kind of a different little spin on things also.
So the Baltimore school was first, and you say the school from D.C. was second. Who got third?
Third place, I believe it was the Plainfield High School band.
What was your reaction to Central's band?
Central did not show up for the game.
Oh, they did.
For me in the crowd, I think it was a surprise because, it's a homecoming. It's not that far. Morgan always makes a trip down to Central, so I was a little surprised. I don't know if it was budgetary concerns or what have you, scheduling. I just don't know what it is, but Central didn't show up. Homecoming was still a great homecoming despite that. But I was a little disappointed. I was looking forward to seeing North Carolina Central this year.
Morgan, you guys are somebody to actually see this year. So what about the
We're
bands?
somebody to see every year.
Yeah, excuse me.
I'm
That's my
messing
bad.
with you.
See,
I'm messing with you. I was looking forward to kind of seeing a replay of Morgan and North Carolina Central because last year, when I say they had really nice fifth, I think the drum line did a battle. When I say that was like one of those hot weeks playing North Carolina Central down there, that was really exciting. So I was a little surprised, and it could be budgetary things. A little bit disappointed they didn't make it up for homecoming. Their Queens and Kings made it up, but the band didn't.
Right. So how did the band do?
I think they looked and sounded great. This is probably the best year I've seen Morgan. They sounded great. That's a good sounding, good looking, energetic band. I think everyone has been really impressed with the Morgan State band we're seeing this year. A couple surprises during the show. Everybody was oohing and ahhing, as the Foxy Jamesons broke out a new uniform, flag line. Really, when I say they're just all into it this season, it really is a good year for Morgan State. So kudos to Melvin Miles, the director of bands, Mr. Carl Stewart, the assistant director of bands, for the work that they're doing with that program. The band looks really good. Sounds really good.
That's cool. And also shout out to the president. I know that when we talked, you were talking about he was on the Facebook posting the stuff. That made me happy.
Dr. David Wilson, thank you so much for his continued support.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. He's good about, you can look up in rehearsal and you'll see the president standing there watching, shooting picture, filming, putting it on Facebook. Support of the administration is really a wonderful thing as well.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Have you seen Morgan this year, Rashad?
Yeah, I saw Morgan last week.
What did you think about her, man?
So I will agree with what she said. I would say that is the best that I have seen Morgan, and the biggest that I've seen Morgan. I think they had about 18 tubas over there.
Look, 20. Let me correct it.
20 tubas over there, and they've come a long way. However, I will say they're not quite there yet. But I think they're on their way to being one of the upper echelon bands. So I really was excited to see them because last year when I was at homecoming, we sat next to Morgan and across from Hampton's band. I really didn't know what they were playing, exactly how they sounded. I just knew, God, that's a really powerful band over there. Standing in front of them, I heard some really good moments. I feel like there were some times where they didn't quite know the music completely, kind of uncomfortable with some things. Like there were a couple runs here and there. It's like that didn't come through quite clearly. The music itself, I thought, was arranged very well. I did like the halftime show. One thing I did notice is the balance of the band has changed tremendously since the bands that I know. Being a trombone player myself, one of the battles that we used to enjoy the most at Hampton was with the Legion of Bones at Morgan State. Shout out to Baloo, all those guys. The Legion of Bones always used to come with a lot of cool things. We thought we were something else in the MEAC, and that's because we were. The Legion of Bones didn't give us a run for our money every time that we matched up. But they used to really be the heart of the band when it came to power. And I noticed that the trombone section is not quite as strong, at least as compared to the rest of the band as it was. I would like to see a little bit more sound coming from there, but right now baritones are real strong. Morgan State is on its way to becoming one of the higher echelon bands. Maybe give it a year.
Need to write music and drill? Get it on the field. Outfit your band. Keep your administrator happy and still have a life. Encountering drama in the process, ain't nobody got time for that. Let Block Band Music assist you with musical arrangements and drills to fit your band, and also the equipment, gear, and accessories to keep the visuals, music, and marching on point. Contact blockbandmusic@gmail.com and see how this worldwide minority-owned business can uplift your band.
Hello, this is Brian Knowles, Associate Director of Bands at Miles College, and proud Tennessee State University grad and proud Alabama State University grad. And you are listening to the 90 Degree Show here on the Marching Podcast Network.
Rashad, it was interesting you said that. Do you think it's that they're not as strong, or do you think it's the arranging style? And that's probably going to take us into our conversation whenever you guys are ready about Talladega. I'm thinking it may be the arranging style compared to we're used to hearing now. It's so funny to me. I haven't been able to figure this thing out until then tonight. I was sitting here pondering it. Most bands are arranging it around their trumpet section. Quite a few arrangers are doing that. Would you agree with that? Is that what we're basically seeing now?
There's a whole other conversation you're opening up right there. So let me answer the first part first. When it came to the field show, the arranging I felt was actually pretty similar to what was done back in the 90s. As a matter of fact, you guys played Baby I'm a Star, which was the exact same arrangement that you guys played when you came to saw us in the 90s. As far as what instrument is the most important instrument, I guess, the trumpet has carried that role. I've always been taught and understood and carried the belief that the trumpet was the leader of the band. And when you want the melody to be carried, then you give it to the trumpets. However, the trumpet is starting to lose that dominance now. Baritone and euphonium is starting to be a much more important instrument, particularly with a lot of the bands in the Southwest now. There's a change that's happening right now because trumpets just can't keep up with euphoniums.
But I think as a arranger, I think the strength of the section sometimes depend on the arrangement. The more I'm listening to bands, what I'm noticing is those arrangers who arrange around trumpet, if they arrange around trumpet, it's going to seem as if some of the other section, middle voicing, is not as dominant. Quite a few of the MEACs arrange around the baritone, the euphonium, the middle voicing, then you hear kind of a different kind of sound. Typically, Morgan State arranges around, Melvin Miles' arrangements go around the trombone middle voicing. So that's why I was like, is it that, or is it because as arrangers, sometimes most arrangers today, they're arranging around trumpet. So when you're not hearing that as the dominant, it seems as if other things are kind of affected. So that's why I was wondering when you said that. Don't agree or disagree, kind of get your perspective on it as a arranger.
So I actually have a question then, I guess, for both of you, as far as based on what you just asked. Is that a regional thing? So what Bridget just said, Morgan State doing things around the trombone, or you say the middle voices. I remember when I was at Smith, there was a lot of trombone representation. I guess that's what I'm asking. Is it an East Coast thing versus when I hit the SWAC? I remember we had a lot of lead lines in 97 or in the late 90s playing trumpet. We had a lot of the lead stuff. And then, of course, we know Southern. So is that like a regional thing?
I don't think it's a regional school of thoughts when it comes to directors, who you've kind of studied under, what's your philosophy on arrangement. MEAC versus SWAC sound is totally different, I think, for that exact perspective, from that exact reasoning. I think based upon who you've studied under, for instance, those younger arrangers that have studied under the Sargent brothers, Mr. Adams, Mr. Miles, I can tell almost immediately because it's a unique kind of sound. They're not necessarily doing block chords and high trumpet parts. not to throw shade, but yeah, there's a little shade there. They're doing actual arrangements. And so there's two different things that you're kind of hearing from the bands. So I'm listening to Talladega and Miles, and I'm like, oh man, like that's all I'm hearing is loud trumpets carrying the melody. It's a Southern thing. The guys who come from the Southern school of thought, they do the same thing. High trumpet parts, the middle voices are the chords. They're just providing that block chord kind of sound. But younger rangers that are coming out of the MEAC schools, that's a very warm feeling that you get, in my opinion, that you get when you hear that middle voice and carrying the melody. And it just depends on the song that you have also.
Wrong.
Ooh!
Wrong. I heard the band and it was a disaster.
You heard what band and it was a disaster?
That's my Donald Trump right there.
Listen at you.
This is good because we can really have some back and forth here. Are you an arranger yourself?
I do. I dibble and dabble a bit at arranging. I'm not arranging for any college band, so my perspective is a little bit different, but I did study under Melvin Miles, so of course I get my thoughts from what I've been trained under.
We don't have any female arrangers, Block Band, and we've been wanting some females to be on the artistic side of our program for a long time. Hit me up.
Okay.
You're not scared.
Oh, you're not scared? Never scared. Never, ever scared.
Our philosophy when it comes to arranging actually is based on the fact that it is a very regional thing, because we divide our arranging style into 3 styles, which is what we call the Southwest style, the Southeast style, and the North style. And all 3 bands play very differently. The use of the trombone as a melodic instrument significantly without glissing continuously, very northern thing. Your A&Ts do that. Your Howards do that. Morgan has done that. Tennessee State does that. Hampton has always done that. Norfolk State has always done that.
But how do you put Tennessee in that region? And FAMU does it quite often as well.
Yes, but it's a little bit different with FAMU. As far as the amount of trombone, FAMU and what we call the Southeast bands, they use trombone a whole lot more than the bands in the Southwest. Because if you're in the Southwest, what you're going to do is you're going to go, and you're going to play the chorus the rest of the song. That's how it's just going to go. Versus in the North, you're going to maybe start with the melody. You might have a counter melody in there somewhere. You might split the trombones up, and maybe some of them are playing the bass line and some of them are playing the melody. Make one exception. Jackson State does a great job of using those trombones and doing a lot of stuff. I really have to, after listening to them, I really have to give them some credit for a lot of the things that they do. But in the Southeast, the baritone, you're looking at your FAMs, you're looking at your Bethune-Cookmans, the baritone is a much more important melodic instrument than the trombone is. Even though the trombone does get its share of work, after that, the baritones are going to do a lot more when it comes to shining, but they're going to be more so your counter melody instruments and other melodic instruments as opposed to being a power instrument like they are in the Southwest.
I know that the bands and the SWAC sound a certain way and all that. And then, of course, I know it can get mixed because now O'Neal Sanford's there at Jackson State, so he's probably going to start bringing some more of his flavor. And then I'd like to see what Miss Brock does down there at Valley. And that's how I got into geography. Those regional differences between people are always exciting to me. So even with us, with black people, are super regional. Like I can tell somebody from the South, or I can tell somebody that's from like L.A. or somebody from like New York, son. You know what I mean? So, I mean, all that stuff is exciting to me. I was just wondering how it related to like the arranging.
Your man, Garrett Edgerton from Louisiana, he sounds so similar to one of the guys that was on my staff that went to Southern and Kenny Collins. Like their voices are so similar as far as how they talk. There's nobody else in my staff I've ever had that has that same type of sound. So, yeah, it's very regional, even in the dialects.
And I love when I said, he was just on the last podcast, I said, man, it's been about 4 years. He said, yep, it's been 4 years. I was a senior at Southern. Southern. So, Southern. Really good conversation. I wanted to ask you guys about the Talladega Miles matchup. This is a really good rivalry. It happened early this year, so we are talking about it kind of late, titled the Southern Regional Battle of the Bands. We had our 2 Talladega and Miles. A couple of years ago, they had the whole going back and forth and in front of the high schools, and then Professor Snipes actually came on the show and apologized for all of that, but it still kept the blood going in the rivalry. So
are you talking about the battle that happened in Columbus, Georgia, that one?
I believe so. I
When
think
they
it was maybe 2
when they were
years
kind of
ago.
going back and forth, kind of cutting each other off. And that
Yeah,
one.
and then like I think one band was on the field and the other
Yeah.
one kept playing. Just mad off the chainness. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. My cousin actually was the host for that. He actually put that battle together down in Columbus, Georgia, so I know exactly what you're talking
Oh,
about.
okay. Well, yeah, because I know a lot of
Yeah.
people were talking about it, and
Mm-hmm.
we all were apologized. We're all better, but it did kind of add something to the craft, like that whole Duke, North Carolina feeling. Really excited to always see these two bands. So I ask you first, Bridget, since you are the lady, of course.
Well, thank you.
What was your reaction to the event?
Okay, here we go. So I'm
Uh-oh.
I'm going to talk about the music part. So Rashard,
Yeah.
you're not going to agree with me. I love you regardless, but I am over the block chord what sound and everybody blowing their brains out, and we're losing the timbre of the music. What's the point of having woodwinds if you never hear them? I am so over it. They're sitting in the front. They may as well just sit there. They may as well get up and dance with the dancers because you cannot hear them. And so I think that's where the philosophical viewpoints of arranging really come in. If you want chords and loud melody, okay, but I feel like we're playing so whole notes in melody, and I need college bands to move beyond that. And so for both bands, I'm kind of like, it's hard to pick a winner. If you have to pick one, okay, I'll give it to Miles. Just because, yeah, I don't know. Intonation-wise, they're a little bit better. But when I say I'm really over the whole note chords, and I know everybody loves that, oh, man, they were cranking. I'm sorry, cranking is not a musical word I find in my dictionary, but I know we love that term also in HBCU bands. So, yes, I'm going to go there for a minute. I do not prefer, if we want to call it the Southwest regional style. Every once in a while, it's fine. But when everything you do have that same feeling, it's just like, okay, this is boring. I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of hearing the block chords, the trumpets with the high melody. Everybody's playing in the same key or just really loud so they can get the power effect. And then when it boils down to it, you don't have the chops to play no type of ballad, because that's where the real musicality happens. Let us dare not play anything soft and slow, because that shows us where our skill levels, our intonation, everything really is. It's like a person that goes to the gym and they're lifting weights. When I go into a gym, if I see somebody pumping weights real fast, I'm like, they're not doing anything. They're not building muscle. The intensity comes, the real muscle builders are those who are taking their time. They're building slow. You see the strain, you see them. That's where the muscle really happens. We're not building muscles. We're doing this beginner stuff, and it's driving me crazy. But I just have to say it. That arranging style, I do not prefer. I don't prefer it at all. I don't like it.
Can you tell us how you really feel, though?
I know.
Double Time Entertainment. Our passion is music and promoting HBCU marching bands as well as high school marching bands through high-quality movie videos and photos. We have worked with BET, Yamaha, Ludwig, Honda Motor Company, and been featured on CNN and Lifetime Network's series Bama State Style. We also help and orchestrate Battle of the Bands with marketing and promotions, and also became the official media team for the Queen City Battle of the Bands in Charlotte, North Carolina. Join Double Time Entertainment on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, and now new on Periscope. Music lovers are noteworthy.
What's up? This is Damon Amelia, Trump Funk, class of 2006 at Jackson State. You're listening to the 90 Degree Show here on the Marching Podcast Network.
The whole notes don't excite Rashard.
Half notes don't recite.
Or yeah, half notes.
Right.
So-
I'm good with whole notes.
So I see what you're saying, and it is like an excitement part. A lot of
Right.
tuba and drum breaks. Rashad, what did you think, man, about the initial reaction to the event?
I would say that Talladega never needs to blow on Miles again while they're on the field. Or anybody else ever again. that they have created a monster with that. Just to tell a quick story, when I was in the band, we came across A&T for the very first time, and we had never at that point lost the fifth quarter, never walked out because we had a ton of music. We came across A&T for the first time, and they hung with us for 2 hours after the game was over. And
Wow.
don't you know, the next year we added 20 more songs to our book. And to me, that's kind of what happened with Dega and Miles. Dega really took advantage of Miles. Yeah, 2 years ago, they really took advantage of them. This is Miles was on the field and Dega was playing at him, and really, Dega was really big at that time. And I think even though Miles was standing their own in the battle in the stands, it really wasn't a good matchup. Dega really got the best of him. That's no longer the case. Miles is a monster right now. I will have to say that I understand what you guys are saying as far as some musicality and things like that is concerned. I got to give some credit to Miles for some of the things that they were doing. If you listen to a lot of the articulations, Miles did a lot of really great, very clean articulations in those trumpet sections. There's a lot of things going on in the tuba section. But don't. I mean, they were clean on those runs too. And one thing I tell my Rangers is that look, every song deserves to have a tuba run, and they were killing those runs. There's a lot of times where they did subito pianos. As a matter of fact, they were playing in the heat of the moment. I want y'all to go back, watch the video, and check out in the heat of the moment and how they're playing at double forte, and all of a sudden, boom, they drop down to all the way to subito piano, which means suddenly get soft for our listeners. And they do a great job. A lot of times what happens, like let's say if you're playing a march and you do a subito piano, what ends up happening is at that time, actually, your woodwinds are too loud sometimes because the woodwinds think they can't be heard, so they're playing at regular volume. Now they're too loud. In this situation, everybody got soft really fast, and then they came back. Even the very first song that I heard them play was different than how like your average blow song is going to go. Oh, it was Tear the Club Up.
Yeah.
It was. I love the arrangement of that. They came strong, and then tubas had a little tuba thing that they do, the tuba solo, and then you're like, here they go. They're about to come at you real hard, but instead of coming at you really hard, they came in soft. But then instead of playing like 4 bars of playing soft or 8 bars of playing soft, it was either like 2 bars or 6 bars they did of playing soft. And all of a sudden the trombones came at you all of a sudden. I was like, oh man, that was awesome how they did that. When you were listening to Dega, no disrespect to them, but the things that they were doing were very predictable. You knew, okay, they're going to be loud here. Okay, they're going to take a tuba break here. Okay, they're going to play a loud note here. Let's do a tuba break again. Let's bring everybody back in loud. I really have to give some credit to Miles. They are in that Southwest style, so that's how they play, but their level of proficiency as far as their playing, as far as their attacks, as far as their releases, I thought they did very well. I think they should look into maybe using some different mouthpieces with the baritones or perhaps a different baritone. I don't think they need to go to euphoniums. They had a lot better balance than Dega had. However, their baritones sound very trombone-y. There were so many times where I wasn't looking at the video and I was just sitting down like, oh man, those trombones sound great, but they were actually baritones. You need to sound a little bit more like a baritone. I don't know if they're using 12 Cs, if you are using 6.5 AL, or go to the 5G or just something else. But other than that, to me, the clear victor was Miles College.
For the most part, I can kind of agree with a good part of that, Rashard. I think if you have to pick a winner, I would give it to Miles. But I just think I'm disturbed with the overall. We're missing the timbre of the music. It's like a heavy metal concert to me, where everything kind of sounds the same. And dynamics are important. I did hear the dynamic contrast with Miles, but I think there's so much more that we're kind of missing in our arranging. And that's just come from that East Coast, whatever we want to call it, MEAC school of thought, where I think there still has to be a bit of timbre that has to come through. I think that's what really makes the music for me. It's like watching a movie in black and white and watching it in color. I'm feeling like we're getting so much black and white that we're missing the color, the other things that really bring the piece to life. When people actually write things, there's a feel, there's a mood. Band, HBCU band play it. We're not always getting that. We're just getting the loud, the power, the soft, the loud. That's all we're getting. But we're not getting the whole color that needs to come out. So we're missing those middle voices. We're missing those, and trust me, I'm a tuba player. So hey, I like tuba lines. However,
Dega had a woodwind solo at the beginning of one of their songs.
Yeah, I heard that with a lot of intonation problems too. They did a I heard, and I was just like, okay, that's a good try. Like, really, it exposes you. If you're arranging in that style, if you have beginners, it works well. I hate to say it, but when it comes down to it, when you're going to get them flutes and clarinets, you're going to get that tone clarinet. Sometimes it's going to expose you for the layers that's found within your organization. You're going to find out, is this really a band that plays with good intonation? Are they in tune? Articulation, all those things, attacks and releases, those are great. Sometimes the arranging can expose you or not as well.
I picked Miles too. I figured that they were winning because they had a difference in their sound. I can hear a little bit more of the levels and the chords and the actual things that they were playing, and I like that tear the club up too. I mean, I like that. That joint is tight. Talladega just seemed, a lot of their stuff was mushed together. That's what it sounded like. It was a lot, like Bridget said, that block sound. I didn't know specifically what they were playing until like the hook came up or like the chorus part. But it's just that clarity that I'm missing and I want to see more bands have. I think we talked about Alabama A&M trying to make sure that they keep that. I like that. I like the power too. I do give Talladega credit for what they have because they are on the map as far as our bands go, and people are going there, and they'll probably get better. They're going to get better musically, but I think Miles probably had a little bit more of a jump on them of when they started that program. No shade, no disrespect, but I never was tripping off Talladega College and was never tripping about Miles. You know what I'm saying? But now, in 2016, they're both somebody to deal with.
Let me just close my comments on that by saying, in my mind now, Miles College has now arrived to be a completely competitive bands with the other major programs that are out there. They're not as big as some of the other major programs that are just giants, but I think that if you sleep on them, they will get you. I would love to see them at Honda this year. I haven't seen them on the field, so I don't know what they're looking like there. Hopefully that their same excitement they have in the stands is carrying over to the field.
I don't believe I saw them on the voting for the Honda. I voted a couple times, voted for Morgan.
Thank you, appreciate it. Voted for Honda.
Of course, voted for Hampton, voted for Jackson, and that's cool because you can vote for like 6 per day. You can spread the love around, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, I didn't see Miles. Just some of the songs that I did hear that I did like. I like the We song from Talladega. And I liked it mostly because I recognized the chords. I didn't know specifically, like...
You could hear the melody.
Right. So I was like, oh, okay, that's when I... And then they played Skin I'm In, which is like one of the greatest HBCU band songs of all time. I don't know if y'all noticed it, but they slowed it down a lot. Did y'all notice that?
You mean they started slow, or they
changed the tempo of the song? So "Skin I'm In" it's not fast, but it's they actually slowed the song down, so it was so you could hear all the runs and all the articulations. They slowed it down. You guys have to check it out, but it was da 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 da. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I didn't know if that was they deliberately did that or if it was just proficiency. That's what I was trying to figure out. I was like, are they purposefully doing that? We hear Howard. That's one of like their staple songs. So we hear them play it all the time. Not saying they do it well, but I'm used to kind of hearing it. And when I heard it, it almost sounded like, you know how you get to a part you're kind of the uncertainty is there, so right. It doesn't quite flow as well. That's what it kind of sounded like to me. I could be wrong. That's how it came across to me.
Yeah, and I thought they were doing it mostly so they could play it correctly, and that's how I learned to play stuff. If it was something fast, I had to slow it down first before I So it felt like they slowed down the piece. So
a lot of bands actually do play it at that tempo.
Really? That slow like that?
Yeah, normally I need to go back and listen to it just to make sure. But when I listened to it, I didn't think anything of it. For years and years and years, that was A&T and Howard's both. That was their staple song. You knew that they were leaving when they played that song, and normally it was dum 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 dum. It was right there.
Oh, okay. So, Bridget, were there any surprises in the video?
I guess I was surprised. It all sounded the same. I would put that as my surprise. Like everything sounds the same. And I'm not trying to be mean about it, but I guess that's surprising and it's kind of disappointing. I need the level of musicianship to really show that high school should not be able to hold a candle to a college band when it comes down to playing. But the way we're arranging and playing right now, come on now, I should not be able to think of high schools that kind of have a better sound than some HBCUs. But the reality is it's happening because we're doing the block chords, the melody, and it all sounds the same. I want to hear, yes, I do want to hear runs. I want to hear the music come alive. I want it to go beyond just the melody and the chords as the foundation. I want you to bring the piece to life. When they created the song, why did they create the song? Bring it to life. And I don't think that's always kind of happening.
Hi, everyone. This is Joe Beer, the Phantom Podcaster and owner and founder of the Marching Podcast. I want to tell you guys about this website, theedge1pro.com. That's DAEDGE1pro.com. This is the website of my man Garrett Edgerson, the media director for Southern University's Human Jukebox. If you want to see great bands and a good idea of the HBCU experience, log into theedge1pro.com. Garrett has photos and videos of events on campus, along with parades of bands of all levels. So check out the Edge One Productions and theedge1pro.com.
Hello, my name is Kellen J. Christian. I am the director of bands at Oak Haven High School in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm also the assistant director of Talladega College in Talladega, Alabama. I'm a native of Chicago, Illinois. I'm a 2007 graduate of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. M4, baby. Swag, stand up. And you are listening to the Marching Podcast Radio Network.
Were any surprises for you?
I'm still laughing off of what I was surprised that it all sounded the same. just reminded me of just going out on a date with your significant other after you have messed up. Oh, I bought you dinner here. How do you like it? My food would have been a whole lot better if you hadn't messed up stuff earlier. You know.
Listen at you.
I was really surprised by the dynamics of Miles College. Very excited about that Tear the Club Up. I mean, that really got me going. I was really excited about that. And also in the heat of the moment. Speaking of tempos, I have no idea why they played that in the heat of the moment so fast. It's like everybody had to go to the bathroom. I mean, it's like, in the heat of the moment, baby, I lost my head. I lost my mind. I didn't know what to do. Slow. Wow. That was really, really too fast for me. But I was very surprised by how soft they played it in the middle. God, slow down.
Bridge, your reaction to the overall event, and who do you think had the best performance?
Best performance I would give to Miles. Reaction to the overall event, I guess it was a typical battle of the bands. I thought it was pretty okay. You know, I'm quite sure the crowd enjoyed it. It seemed like it was enjoyable to both bands. Were they sitting next to each other? That's one thing I was trying to figure out. It's like they were like right next to each other instead of across from each other. Was that the setup?
I think so.
That setup was kind of interesting also. That was the other thing I kind of noted. But overall, definitely Miles College.
Okay, Rashad, who do you think had the better performance?
The only thing I do have an opinion on is I thought it was really cool how the two bands came together in a separate video and they played One Blood. I don't know how they have the same arrangement of it, but that was really cool how they came together. And the beginning of it, like you actually have to watch because it is as conducted at the beginning. For both bands to be able to, I don't assume that they've practiced together before, but both bands to be able to watch and do that part that needs to be directed. You can't just give the tempo at the beginning and then do it pretty much without flaw. I thought that was pretty cool.
So, Bridget, anything that you want to let the listeners know about before we wrap up the podcast?
I want to encourage everybody to go out there and vote for the Honda bands. Vote for people, not just the ones that you know, but some of the ones you haven't seen before. Give some other bands some opportunities. I'm putting my plug in, of course, for Morgan State University. They're having a wonderful year, and I know you won't be disappointed by seeing them live. I get to see Morgan and Norfolk coming up and some of the other games that are happening for all the other universities. Those who haven't had homecoming yet, I think Auntie has homecoming upcoming this week. So I'm excited to see some of the other programs. So, yep, that's my closing thoughts.
Rashad, thing in closing before we close out the podcast?
All right, two things. Number one, band directors, it's time to get your Christmas music right now. Call me, email me. It's time to get your Christmas music right now, because you know good and well if you don't have it in the next week or so, you might not have time to learn it for your parade. So I know you focus on your competitions right now, but Christmas music, get it. Second thing, I just want to say how proud I am and how much a pleasure that it has been for me and my staff to be of benefit to these band programs that are out here. We have so many bands that are doing well. We have Kings Forks High School out of Suffolk, Virginia. They just took today actually their third grand champion trophy for the year.
Woohoo, that's
Not just
awesome.
in the last few years, for this year, it's their third one. They're getting a lot of their equipment from us, and they have, they bought some music from us as well. Drum major maces, spats and gloves. Heritage High School doing well. They did some things today and yesterday. We saw Dillon High School. They came away with some trophies. Dillon is from Dillon, South Carolina. Heritage from Newport News, Virginia. Dillon did very well in a competition in Greensboro yesterday. Highland Springs High School has won a grand championship. They're out of Henrico, Virginia. They've done some things with us. Andrews High School out of High Point, North Carolina, has won a grand championship this year. They probably, I don't know if they went to the competition in Greensboro yesterday. I probably did. There's a good chance that they won that one. It's just so many bands. I'm probably missing several. We had so many bands at the Dillon Battle of the Bands as well. It does my heart good to see them standing up there with their trophies and to see how proud that they are, and just to know that we were able to be a part of that, even when it comes to the competitions themselves. Yesterday, I spoke at the Kings Forks High School band competition, and I talked to the entire crowd about keeping your young person in the band. You know that maybe when they get to 11th, 12th grade, you might want them to get a job. But I was telling them, listen, them getting a job is not going to equal to full tuition at Jackson, full tuition at Morgan, full tuition at Hampton. But them being in the band and being great on their instrument, that can get them tens of thousands of dollars to be in school. There's a whole lot more money than whatever they're going to make from having a job. I was able to talk to all the audience about all the benefits of being in band. For me, it's just a really great feeling right now to be a part of what's happening in our world of music.
I would like to hear more marches. Could have said that when we were doing the thing, but I'd like to hear more marches. And that probably might be going out of style. But I always learned myself that you could learn how to play actually playing a march just because of how either the time signature or the key that it was in and the different parts from the other voices in the band. I'm just dying out hearing marches. And I'm hear a lot of tuba breaks and drum breaks and stuff like that. But I would like to hear more marches. Even the whole thing we talked about in this podcast with Talladega and Miles, I would have liked to seen them go a couple rounds playing a march. I'm not sure if I've heard Talladega play a march. And I know Dr. Liddell, who was my band director, that was his thing. And he actually marched with my dad as well. Best band in the land. That's what they used to call themselves. But they played marches, and that was how a lot of that skill, a lot of that finger dexterity, a lot of stuff came from marches.
I agree with you. Can I just give a shout out to the high school
go ahead.
directors who are doing a fantastic job with their students? A big shout out to the high school band directors. I heard Shad mention so many wonderful directors, and then we had the opportunity of seeing so many this year. But they're the foundation, and sometimes it's a thankless job, but we can't have Black college bands without great high school bands. So shout out to the directors. Keep doing what you're doing.
If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or a patron to the Marching Podcast, please contact the show and we'll give you the criteria so we can start to pub your business using our platform. We'll play your commercial, we'll post your website on our blog, and we'll send out information through social media. So contact us so we can help build your business. Really good conversation with Rashad and Bridget about arranging and about the different styles that exist out there. And really cool to hear about Bridget going to Morgan, partaking in the homecoming festivities. It's that time of year, so everyone have a good time and be safe out there and represent where you're from. And really shout out to Miles and to Talladega and all of the people working with the sand and all of the students, and looking forward to hearing more from both schools here in the rest of this marching season.
Hello, this is Brian Knowles, Associate Director of Bands at Miles College, and proud Tennessee State University grad, and proud Alabama State University grad. And you are listening to the 90 Degree Show here on the Marching Podcast Network.
What's up? This is Damon Million, Trump Funk, class of 2006 at Jackson State. You're listening to the 90 Degree Show here on the Marching Podcast Network.
Hello, my name is Kellen J. Christian. I am the Director of Band at Oak Haven High School in Memphis, Tennessee. I'm also the Assistant Director of Talladega College in Talladega, Alabama. I'm a native of Chicago, Illinois. I'm a 2007 graduate of the University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff. M4, baby. Swag, stand up. And you are listening to the Marching Podcast Radio Network.
We've come to the end of our podcast. Check out our website and donate what's in your heart to themarchingpodcast.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube. Thanks to you for listening. And remember, the lectures you deliver may be very fine and true, but I'd rather get my lesson by observing what you do. See you next time.